Hi students, welcome to editorial analysis of Vijeta IAS Academy. In today's newspaper, there is an important editorial related to quad grouping. Here in our syllabus, you can link with the GS2 paper, mains GS2 paper, where bilateral, regional and global groupings and how it affects India's interests. You can link this particular editorial to this syllabus item. Recently, a virtual meeting of Quadrilateral Security Dialogue was held. Quad is in news for so many days for now. Quad is an informal meeting where four important countries came together and formed as a security cooperation meeting. Here the members of Quad, India, US, Australia and Japan. One of the common features of these countries is democratic countries. Democracy is the fundamental political feature of these countries. And they now discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine, territorial security and maritime security across Indo-Pacific region. The purpose of Quad is to create an ecosystem or a security architecture along with various other developmental aspects to promote open, free maritime transport and also to protect the territorial integrity and maritime security of all the countries which are present in the Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region, it covers South Asia and also Southeast Asia and the western part of USA and South American continent. So this is the area geographically, this area is covered under Indo-Pacific region, where so many countries, and here around more than 40% of people are residing in this area, and also economy wise also some of the powerful economies of the world are also located in Indo-Pacific region. So in this context, security of this region is very important. That is why India joined with this grouping. Now on the growing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, now the stand of India is different and the stand of other three countries are different. Quad is having 4 member countries where 3 members are on one side with respect to Ukraine and Russian conflict, and one, that is India, is on the neutral side. Now these 3 countries are trying to pull India also into their grouping. Now this is one of the case studies for India's diplomacy, how India can protect its interests by not alienating both sides. Here in this case, Russia is a strategic ally of India for so many decades since independence. It cannot antagonize relationship with Russia. At the same time, with growing new realities and new threats in the future, we need the support of countries like USA, Japan, Australia in this particular region on the account of growing tensions with China. So that is why how to safeguard India's interests of future as while safeguarding the present interests as well. At moment, the Russian support is very crucial for India in safeguarding our territories with respect to China and Pakistan nexus. Here, a joint statement is also given in the summit, reaffirmed their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific region, and sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states is respected and countries are free from military, economic, political coercion. Now you can see the statement, joint statement. Sovereignty, territorial integrity of all states should be respected and it should be protected. Now in the case of Ukraine, Russia violated the sovereign rights and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Now, on one hand, India joined hands with other members of Quad in giving statements like sovereignty and territorial integrity of states should be protected. When Russia violated this principle, what is the stand of India? So this became a difficult trouble region for India's foreign policy at moment. Different approach towards Russia within Quad. 3 members have condemned Russia's aggression, slapped Kremlin. Here Russia allies, and organizations linked to them with crippling sanctions. Sanctions also imposed and condemned Russia's aggression. However, India has abstained from 3 UN resolutions condemning Russia. While USA, Australia, Japan directly called out Russia's attempt to unilaterally force changes to the status quo in Ukraine and vowed not to let such action occur anywhere in the Indo-Pacific region. So this is an example, this is an experience. Now this kind of situation should not arise in the Indo-Pacific region. India's readout only referenced Ukraine in passing in the context of establishing a new humanitarian assistance and disaster relief mechanisms for this cause. Now in this statements also, now there is a difference with respect to the other 3 countries and with respect to India. Now how we have to safeguard our interest in Quad? Now if differences are more in Quad, now we cannot function properly within Quad grouping if there are more differences. That is how now it is a very crucial condition for India to safeguard interests on both sides. Complex questions for India's foreign policy now. Russia's action posed complex questions for India's strategic calculus. For future, we need to depend on countries like USA, Japan, Australia to safeguard our interest in Indo-Pacific region. But at the moment, these 3 countries are against Russia. Now, however, Russia is a strategic ally of India. New Delhi continues to be guided by 21st variant of non-alignment paradigm. It needs to remain close to Moscow, a major defense supplier. On one hand, we should be close to Russia also. On the other hand, we should have good relations with new realities as well. India learned how to get CATSA waiver for India's purchase of $5 billion worth of Russian Triumph missile defense system. At the moment, India is importing this missile system from Russia. USA should not impose sanctions on this particular trade agreement, and USA can give waiver for with respect to India. If USA waives off India, then easily India can import. India now learned how to get the waiver with respect to this particular trade. However, it is posing new threats if Russia violates more human rights in Ukraine. Quad cannot afford to alienate India, a crucial partner in the global strategic plan to balance the rise of China and potential Asian hegemon. Quad grouping other 3 countries also in need of India, and India is also in need of other 3 countries. Now only in case of Russia, India may find its resolve and patience with Russia tested should Russian occupying forces begin committing war crimes and human rights violation in contravention of Geneva Convention. These are the phrases and important conventions or organizations which are given in the editorial. We should focus on them exclusively because these are the points which we can expect in prelims. Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other applicable global treaties. Here Geneva Conventions, these are the conventions are applied since 1949. They are about rules limiting the barbarity of war. It is about treatment of prisoners of war. It is about how wounded soldiers are treated and how civilians who are not participating in the war, how they will be treated. This is very crucial. If there is any war, civilians are going to be affected even though they are not participating in the war. They are in the receiving end. It leads to war barbarity and it leads to war crimes. And also how the prisoners of war will be treated. If soldiers who are not fighting and they became prisoners of war, how they should be treated. These are the conventions, Geneva Conventions, that are there since 1949. These conventions developed after post-World War. During Second World War, this barbarity of war was so much that after the formation of United Nations and after World War II, such kind of conventions emerged to treat war prisoners and also civilians fairly so that minimum loss of human lives will take place. Now in this case, if Russian occupation of Ukraine If it violates these conventions, Geneva Conventions, and if it commit any war crimes like this, then it becomes very difficult for India to take stand to support Russia's stand or to support Russia's these barbarities of war. So in that context, editorial is warning or giving the caution that Quad needs India. India also need the Quad grouping. However, in future, if Russia commits these violations, it may become very difficult for India to support Russia, even though Russia is a very strategic ally. This is about this particular editorial. Next article, which is given about China and Afghanistan. Here you can think like how in our GS2 syllabus, effects of policies on politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests, Indian diaspora. Under this particular heading, you can link this particular article. Here it is talking about the China's interest in Afghanistan and how Afghanistan's relations will affect China as well. So how China is trying to maintain relationship with Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is our neighborhood. If anything happens in Afghanistan, it will have security implications on India as well. And also Chinese actions in our neighborhood is also an important concern for India. Here it is trying to explain, this is related, it is based on a book written on the relationship between China and Taliban. Here China hosted many times to the Taliban. In August last year, in 2021, Taliban came to power in Afghanistan. They captured the state power. Now Taliban are the state missionary. Now whoever wants to develop relations with Afghanistan, now they have to deal with Talibans. Here China, before the emergence of Taliban as state power, they hosted many times to Talibans, and it is like a giving indication that if Taliban comes to power, China is ready to deal with Talibans. The message was simple. China saw the Taliban as a legitimate stakeholder in Afghanistan's future, and when it came to power, Beijing would have its back. Wang, China's foreign minister, said, China has always respected Afghanistan's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. These are the phrases very important in case of protection of state rights. With respect to international relations, these are the principles. If these principles are respected, then wars do not take place among the countries. If the neighboring country do not respect sovereignty of the fellow neighbor, then it leads to conflict between countries. Especially after Second World War, United Nations was formed. Many independent countries became members of United Nations. One of the important founding principles of United Nations is to protect sovereignty and territorial integrity of its member countries, and it is also giving other countries that respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of neighboring countries. And here China is saying that Afghanistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity will be protected and adhered to non-interference in Afghanistan's internal affairs, pursued a friendly policy towards entire Afghan people. Since even before Taliban captured the state power, China is maintaining relations with Taliban. It also hosted some of the meetings where Taliban is a key member. And foreign minister said, China hoped the Taliban will make a clean break with all terrorist organizations, including East Turkestan Islamic Movement. This is affecting China's interest and China's security. China is also affected with terrorism. Now, if Taliban comes to power, it is urging Taliban to completely break from terrorist organizations. However, these are optics. The article is explaining that these are optics. This was a theme emphasized by Chinese nationalists, in particular, some of whom even compared the Taliban's victory to that of Mao's communist rebels in 1949. Some of the nationalists, they are comparing Taliban's rise also with Mao's capturing of state power in 1949. And a professor, he is saying that it's stunning to think that among the Taliban today, studying Mao Zedong thought takes precedence over reciting the Quran. This is the kind of optics, or this is the kind of projection that China and Taliban relations are highlighted in China. But this is only one side of the story. But real thing is, despite these outward appearances, despite these outward optics means how they show their relationship. However, Chinese are afraid of the Taliban activities, afraid of terrorist activities in the region. There was a wariness of any kind of Islam, as viewed in the attitudes of many in China towards the country's own Muslims in Xinjiang and elsewhere. They are afraid of Islam in China, according to article it is saying, and they are wary of terrorist organizations and also how they treat Islam or Muslims in Xinjiang region. A deteriorating security environment is developing in the region. Spillover into Pakistan and affected Chinese projects impact Xinjiang. Here you can see, here this is Afghanistan. If there is any security implication here, it affects Pakistan, and in Pakistan, China is investing a lot of money in the development of China-Pakistan economic corridor. Now, this is the reason. If Chinese projects are affected, it affects the Chinese sovereignty, and also it affects the terrorist organizations within China as well. And there are already terrorist activities or terrorist targets are happening in China as well. That is why China is very cautious also. The article is highlighting that on one hand, China is trying to project, it is respecting that territory, respecting the Afghanistan security, and also it is trying to improve relationship with Taliban as well. But it is worried about the security implications and spillover effects on China's interests. And already few examples since the July and August, when Taliban were rising in the Afghanistan, and also when they were rising and when they were capturing the power. Suicide bombings were taking place. In one of the worst attacks on Chinese personnel abroad, 9 Chinese workers were affected and they were killed. It is near Dashu hydropower project in Pakistan. Here this is located where Chinese people were there. They were also killed in that particular terrorist attack. And in August, a motorcade carrying Chinese workers for the East Bay Expressway project in Gwadar was attacked by suicide bomber. So Chinese people are also targeted by suicide bomber. Now China's interests are there in Pakistan. Now how it should maintain relations with Taliban. On one hand, China is happy for the exit of US because USA is humiliated in this particular development. Heralding of a new era in China-Afghan ties. Even within China, there were calls urging Beijing to continue exercising caution. Within China itself, on one hand, they are highlighting the good relationship with Taliban. On the other hand, they are cautious about the relationship with Taliban. China will not repeat the mistakes of West and pour in billions, let alone set boots on the ground. So this book is giving the indication that China may not repeat the mistakes of West, because West, it came as part of global war on terror in Afghanistan in 2001, and even after 2 decades also the conditions were almost same in this particular region. But the Western countries lost a lot of lives and also a lot of money in billions. It affected internal policies of West as well. It affected economy of Western countries, particularly here USA. China may not repeat these mistakes and will not involve in these dynamics. So this is about this particular issue. And if China, this is exclusively focusing on China and Taliban relations. India should develop or should continuously monitor the developments within Afghanistan, because if security within Afghanistan is compromised, it will have spillover effects on Pakistan, and in turn it will have impact on India as well. This is about this particular editorial. Thank you.